to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now we are blazing through the Poppy Wars, and we are covering part 2 of R.F. Kuang's The Burning God.
The Burning God.
And boy, does it burn in this section. But before we get into it, Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Listen to Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree.
Oh, how is that?
It's a really heartwarming book. So I did not know what to expect with this. So many people were like, oh, read this. And I was seeing the cover everywhere. And I was like, okay, what is this about? Because there's a picture of a orc that you learn she's an orc, and a succubus on the cover, and they're like brewing coffee, and there's a bunch of pastries in front of them on the cover. So I was like, what is this book about? I think it was described as like fantasy with no stakes. Hannah, that's exactly what it is. It's fantasy with absolutely no stakes. This is about an orc who wants to follow her dream and start a coffee shop and leave behind her like life as an orc, where she was like, smashing people up and fighting people all the time and everything. And she starts a coffee shop, and it's the cutest book. The characters are so supportive of each other and help each other out. The way that they come across new items to be in the shop and everything is adorable. They are so supportive, so sweet. Everything about this book is just really heartwarming. I totally recommend it.
Oh, good. I actually know it was I follow a woman on TikTok who like makes drinks with whatever she's currently reading.
This would be a great one. That was lattes.
Well, that was how she like kind of blew up, or like how she kind of found her footing in this. But then she like started being like, actually, I really love cosplaying, and I really only love comfort fantasies the majority of the time. And she was like, is that something people would be interested in? And her like TikTok kind of transformed into her just recommending like light fairy, like fantasy with no stakes, like you were talking about. So I feel like I need to send you some of her reading recommendations.
Yeah, I'm totally interested in that because I'm like, I've never read a fantasy book like this, where it's like, there's no, like, we don't have to go on some quest. We don't have to, take down this person or that person. We're not worrying about this person discovering their powers or anything like that. This is literally small business, like entrepreneurship. And
I'll have to send you some of
with
them.
Elves and orcs and gnomes and succubi, and it's great. Highly recommend. I think there's a couple of books that are kind of along those lines of no stakes fantasy that are in our indie intermission.
Yes.
But I don't know who will win, but we're definitely going to check out all those books. So
I know. Oh, obviously. And we're in our second round right now. So make sure you guys are still voting every single weekday. We have voting every weekday. I usually don't do voting on the weekend because I don't think it's going to get as, popular. But are you watching anything right now?
So I've just been watching Rings of Power, and then I've been watching The Patient.
I started that. I watched all of it.
You watched all of it?
I caught up with it. It was really good. It like took a turn that I wasn't expecting. Like just it kind of just goes off the wall. Okay, so guys, if you haven't watched The Patient, jump
ahead
2 minutes. We'll have 2 minutes for this.
Go, Hannah. What was surprising?
Well, the mom showing up.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. I was watching that, and then the mom like comes downstairs. She lives there where her son has kidnapped people, and I'm like, what the hell? Why are you allowing me to kidnap people?
And she's like, I just want to help him, and it's like, I don't think you do.
I think the help he needs.
Like this is not okay. You're letting him like be like, oh well, he really wants to try, and it's like, I don't think that matters. I think it's still a bad idea.
It's a terrible idea. Hannah, have you watched all the episodes up until the one that's coming out tomorrow? I guess.
Yes, I believe so.
The last episode, we find out that Sam is wanting to work through this tendency to, or this urge to kill people.
Right.
And he's working with Steve Carell, and he has kidnapped another person, and he's trying to fight the urge to kill this person. And he cannot fight it, so he goes in and tries to attempt to kill this person, and Steve calls for the mom.
Yeah.
The mom comes down and is able to get him to stop. But then the second time this happens, I was so frustrated because she did not come down, and I was like, what is your deal?
Right.
Ugh. How can you condone this? Call the cops on him. This is not okay. Oh, so bothered by that.
Well, and so the first couple episodes,
but a good twist.
I honestly thought we were going to find out that he's actually not a serial killer. Like, I was like, I bet he's not. I bet that this is just like, or like he knows someone who's a serial killer, so he's trying to get help this way. And then I got to this episode and I was like, never, or it got to like the kidnapping episode and I was like, never mind. He's just a serial killer. That's on me. And I also like,
they did a good job of like making you sit in that space though, where you're like, nothing's happened yet. It's not too late. He could be something else, that he's maybe not a killer.
Yeah. I also have like a lot of thoughts about the Steve
son
Carell
relationship.
Yeah. Storyline where like, I have a lot of complicated feelings where we're getting like Steve Carell's perspective of like his son deciding to become like an Orthodox, like Jew, Jewish person. And I just, there are so many thoughts I have where I'm like, I understand where it's like, if your son is like going down in a religious way towards things you do not understand or accept as your own religion, how difficult that can be. But there are also moments where I'm like, yes, it has got to be hard if like your son decides to like go towards a fundamental belief system where you two are close, and now like women may be treated as lesser than, or they do not get to actively participate as much in the church. But like, also there is a certain amount of like, that has got to be frustrating. And his mom like picked up a guitar and sang at a wedding when he was not comfortable and asked her not to. And it's like, that is inappropriate.
That was a tough thing to watch, honestly.
Yeah.
Like you were uncomfortable watching that. And it was, so I do not know much about that religion. Right. But apparently people who are part of the Orthodox Jew,
or at least that sect of it, I don't know,
that,
you know, like
I don't really know much about Jewish faith and culture in general.
Right.
But apparently the Orthodox people, they do not allow women to sing. It's considered a very personal experience, similar to like seeing someone naked, I think, you know what I mean?
Right.
Where it's like considered almost not sexual, but a really personal thing, where it's not really considered appropriate to hear a woman sing unless it's like your wife or someone in your family, I guess. And so his mom gets up at his wedding and is going to perform a song because she's been a cantor for their church, and they tell her that they are not okay with this, and she continues to do it to the point where people are getting up and leaving because they're trying to abide by the rules of their own faith. And it's really uncomfortable. And she makes a comment of, he's my son, I'm going to perform at this. And it's really difficult and awkward to watch, because you can kind of feel for the mom wanting to be involved in her son's wedding and feeling like she hasn't been involved in his life and is kind of being pushed out of his life.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you feel how she is disrespecting their faith. And it's a really uncomfortable thing to watch.
Well, and like Steve Carell earlier was like, hey, you have to let him do this. You have to let him come to terms, like, you know, and there are just other moments in the show that may be deeply uncomfortable where like you understand and you get it, where like, there is a push and pull of like, the son comes over and like it's a celebration. That's why he's coming over, but like his family cannot partake in certain foods. And like the mom's not going to take that away from the other grandkids or the other people celebrating. And I'm like, I can understand that. And if it's one time out of the year, like, is it so bad to be like, we're just not going to participate in this one area so we can, it just made me have a lot of like complicated feelings.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I think that is the point.
Yes.
That they want us to feel uncomfortable. They want us to be like, okay, I don't know how to feel about this.
Like, and it's no clear answer. No one
right.
And I think I get concerned because I'm like, I hope the message isn't like the son is in the wrong character, because I'm like, that's not what I'm getting.
That I'm getting.
That's not what I'm getting either. I always have fears when it comes to that. So
I think that it's doing a fairly good job of making this the perspective from the father.
Yeah.
Where if it was more of like an omniscient being, you know, it would be a little bit, why would we have a biased opinion on that? But because it's definitely from his point of view, he's the one telling this and sharing his point of view of what had happened. I think it's better because you know that you're getting kind of a biased opinion. So
it's definitely an interesting look at motherhood and like how
parenthood in general,
and how complicated it can be.
Sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
But I've been watching that because I know you recommended it, so I watched it all.
New episode tomorrow, so
good to know.
Excited.
or yesterday if you guys are coming to us from
the
future.
That's right.
We didn't spoil the whole thing because
yesterday or tomorrow, depending on where you are in the universe. Hannah, what have you been reading and watching?
So I listened to Ace of Spades on audio, which is all over Bookstagram. And it's by Farah Abika Ayamedi. I apologize for mispronouncing her name. And this book like got rave reviews by everyone. I kind of thought it was just okay. Like, it's like dark academia. It's about two Black students who start having like people text, or like this like quote unquote like ace person reveal secrets to their lives, and like it and like their lives are getting ruined. They have a ton of stuff coming out about themselves, and like they were kind of on top of the school, and like they start like falling. And like,
is this a YA?
It is YA.
Okay, because I'm like on top of the school, like what?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So it's kind of like a Pretty Little Liars type situation where like
it's very much like, she says she was very much like affected by like watching Gossip Girl as a young person, and like her own experience in like a preparatory private school. Things I loved. It's like LGBT, so I love that. It has like very interesting characters. Like the girl character is like a Blair Waldorf character, which is fun to see like a Black girl be unapologetically awesome, you know? And I liked the storyline, although, so I think part of the problem is this was a British author writing about an American school system. And like, while some of this could have happened, I just felt like throughout the book, you find out that these are the only two people of color who attend this like private school. And like, yes, that does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but like the logistics of like, it almost pretends that people of color can't be rich, and if they were, they wouldn't get into that school, kind of thing. And it was just very interesting because I was like, there's a certain logical leaps you need to take, where it felt like this was almost like too big of a city for this to be happening in, or too small of a town for it not to be a bigger thing, you know?
Right.
And so the logistics of it are a little bit iffy to me. But I still like, you know, it's still better than all the okay books. You know, I think she's an amazing writer. I think I love the Gossip Girl-ness of it. I love watching like, you know, these Black characters get to shine. But some of it was just like, I was like, really? No one's figured this out? And like, also the time period it set in. Like, I wish it had been set like in the 90s, because I would have believed it. But like in the age of technology and tweeting, and like 10 years ago, this was still exist, you know, like, so there's stuff that comes out where it's like, this only happens every so often, and like
I sometimes wonder about that kind of thing, if it's like, if they make it like timeless where we don't know what time period it's in, if the book benefits from that, versus like, if you sometimes authors set a time period, or they'll be like, oh, it's the year 2000 or whatever, and it kind of doesn't help things. So I'm always kind of like, iffy on whether I need to know what year and what time things are happening.
And it was just like some of the stuff that happened. I was like, this just doesn't feel as realistic in like an American
Sure.
school system. When we have like certain laws and everything.
Sure.
And I felt like it could have been done better if it was like a scotch more psychological than it was, or like much more thriller. Like it didn't pick that lane. So I kind of just thought it was okay. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars.
Okay.
People love this book. I'm not like ragging on it. Many people like it. I also will say that like there was a quote at the beginning that ruins the twist.
Interesting.
Where I was like, why would you ruin the twist that big?
Like in the chapter, or it's just like at the very beginning of the book, like opens the book.
Beginning of the book that like opens the book, and I was like,
That's
okay,
odd.
I guess it's to know what to, and the way people compare it, because people compare it to something, and I'm not going to say that. Like, if you want to read Ace of Spades, people love this book. People like scream about how much they love this book. It has a 4.26 on Goodreads, so I'm not saying don't love this book. Don't read the first quotes. Like, skip to chapter 1. And don't read what people compare it to, because it ruins a huge like
interesting
plot point. And it was just very bizarre. And so I think then it like didn't work for me because I knew what was going to happen. So just be careful with spoilies on that one. And then I also read All the Feels by Olivia Dade. It's the second in the spoiler alert series. It is I talked about spoiler alert on the podcast, I believe, which is a plus size romance novel. This is a little bit weird because All the Feels takes place during the same time as spoiler alert, with characters who overlap in the 2 books.
Oh, interesting.
So there are certain things where it's like, oh, he's depressed because he and his girlfriend broke up. And it's like, yeah, I remember from the last book.
Interesting.
I know what's happening. And like, because of that, you also knew certain things that were going to happen in this book because they had happened in the other book. But you get to like have more context for them. And I really like Olivia Dade's novels, but I don't love them all the time. I have the 3rd book on NetGalley, so I will be reading and reviewing that one, as of course. But like, I like plus size representation, but I also sometimes feel like these books almost like they get there, but not all the way there. So like, the way he describes her body sometimes gave me the ick, which is a personal preference. I will also say, like, I'm a plus size woman. I'm not sure I would like, I am not as quote unquote fat as these women are in these books. So like certain things I cannot relate to, but like it gave me the ick for them. But like Olivia Dade is also a plus size person. So if she likes them, it's a personal preference. And that's none of my business to judge or have a preference. But like there are certain things where he would like talk about her round belly in like a way that just kind of gave me like a little fetishy vibes. And I was like, I don't love this. I also don't love that the main character men are always like men with 6-pack abs who like obsessively work out. And like, the last book was worse about this, because the last book I was like, this is feeling a little like men have eating disorders too. Like, and it feels like we're not recognizing that because we want to give like plus size women an escapism and like let them know that they are hot enough to like bag a hot guy. But like plus size men are also hot. So I feel like sometimes it's like these women always get these like magnificently looking men who are like, it just sometimes like gives me a little bit weird feelings, but that's something I probably have to internally figure out on my own. And these are not to say these books aren't enjoyable. They're romance, they're fun. These are just certain things that I like thought through as I was reading them. And also like sometimes with these characters, the women are a little bit boring in a way.
Interesting.
But like this book, the main character is a therapist who worked in an ER. And like some of it is like plot wise, she wrote herself into a corner because it's like it has to be believable that she like gets she gets hired by her dick of a cousin to be like this guy's handler. And like it has to be believable that she would be able to be pushed into this type of situation. And she's like burned out from her job, but really like all we get is like she's burned out, a little bit insecure and fat, and that's pretty much it. And like she worked really hard at her job, but because she worked really hard at her job, she only has one friend who she lives with. she doesn't really watch TV. She doesn't really read, like she'll read on her Kindle, but it doesn't talk about like how she's an obsessive reader. Like she has no interests all that much, you know, like, and
so are you saying that you think that maybe the author didn't put as much work into like developing the personality of the main character and was more like, we need a book with a plus size character, and then was kind of like, oh wait, I forgot to give her a personality.
Yeah. And like, but except like their personality is almost always like cutesy. And this is all the characters. This is something I also have to say about all the characters. All the characters feel a little bit immature to me.
Okay.
Because they're supposed to be older than 35.
And interesting.
I don't know, like as someone who is 31 years old, yes, I have hangups about my body. I'm not saying I don't. I gained a bunch of weight after my mom died. So like I have a lot of insecurities about my body weight, but that's not all. And it's not like a constant thing. Like it's sometimes, and it feels like a lot gets written around, like, and it doesn't help that
like that's like the only thing that they ever think about is like, oh my gosh, like I have
part of it is like they're always dating these hot men, so they're always thrust into the social media sphere because these are like famous actors. But like there are parts of it that just I have all the feels about this book. I really enjoyed it, and sometimes they just like the way it's plotted is a little bit immature. The men are a little bit immature and also don't have a ton of like they have personality where they're all just kind of like whimsical. And like that's just not enough for me. Sometimes I want like I think
what I'm getting from you describing this is that this is a very specific type of book, and I feel like the author maybe wrote it just from the perspective of trying to give us a different character and did not really try to get too deep with it. That's I think what I'm getting at. They wanted to center the book around a plus size character, and they wanted it to be more about that than some of the other things that you're bringing up, and that's fine and well, but it does bring up other issues where it's like, well, we kind of need books where, you know, people have personalities as well,
especially in romance. And like romance books are always hard, but like I like romance books where people are like not just, you know, about this, where she like literally one of her things is like, oh, I needed to find myself and like find out what I like. And it's like, you're 35, like what are you trying to figure out at this point? But like it was just, I have complicated feelings about this book, but I think they're fun little escapists. It's a little bit too long. That might also be part of it. Like
how long are they?
They're like over 400 pages. Like it's like 416 pages. And maybe that's my problem. Like for a romance, that's like very heavy.
There's got to be a lot going on.
There's got to be a lot going on. And this has a lot of like twee energy, like early 2000s twee energy, where I'm like, listen,
okay,
these are one of the mainstays of plus size romance representation right now, of like mainstream stuff. So I needed to have just a little bit more for me to read the 400 pages and be like, this is a 4-star. Like so far it's just okay. I will say,
do we learn anything about the characters' careers or anything like that?
Well, like that's is like she's burnt out right now. So one of her careers is like, I just need to like rest and not talk about my job and figure out what I want at the end. But what she figures out like was never, it's just like, I'm going to do this now. And I'm like, that was never discussed before this
because moment. I feel like there's a lot of times an opportunity if they're going through like a job change, or they are looking to start a new business, or this, that, and the other. They have a company that they're running on the side, or they volunteer for this organization fundraise. You know, there's all these opportunities to kind of use something like that to make a more interesting side plot.
The plot of this book is like he needs a handler because he got into a bar fight, because he is like a star of a mega hit TV show, which is Game of Thrones. So like he was on Game of Thrones pretty much. He is like, he got in a bar fight and they don't want bad press coming out because it's the final season.
Okay.
And so she gets hired to like be with him at all times. But it's like all constantly she has to be around him. She can never be away from him. And I'm like, this doesn't, like, the logistics of this is so funny to me.
And it's definitely a convenience matter, because it's like, do not screw up in your own private bathroom in there.
Well, and that's like, she sleeps in the guest house, but like if he leaves the property, she has to be with him. And there's also just like, because he has to be this like bastion of like great love interest who is a very hot man who actually wants to have sex with a plus size woman, you know, and likes her for her body and her personality, which every man should. Like even the bar fight he gets into is so watered down, Laura, where I'm like, why can't we have him be a little bit of a messed up guy? Like you have 400 pages, give us something. And it's just like he has ADHD, and that's like his main flaw. And he's a little bit impulsive.
We can handle a little bit of trauma. We can handle a little bit of.
Well, we can handle a little bit of character growth in 400 pages. Like that's the kind of thing is like they're both seemingly like pretty great at the beginning and at the end. So the character arc is just like, hey, guess what? We could like each other. Like it's just a line. And I'm like, I don't know. This just isn't giving me what I wished it was giving me.
Sure.
But like I will say he writes fan fiction for the like pseudo Game of Thrones series that they do, along with his friend from the other book, because that's how the friend from the other book like met his girlfriend. They both wrote fan fiction. They don't like the direction the show is being taken. And it's very parallel with Game of Thrones stuff. And that stuff always makes me happy. And Laura, like the way you're feeling about certain like Game of Thrones people right now, I would suggest you read these books just to like read about them bitching about the way the storyline gets handled. Like I think
I'm thinking maybe I should write some Game of Thrones fan fiction.
I think you should.
I have not watched any of the new Game of Thrones, but I have seen some articles that basically say that I mean, one of the headlines today said something about Game of Thrones prequel series has swapped sexual violence for like birthing violence. And it's like, okay, well then, because apparently it's happened in a handful of episodes where there have been traumatic births. So I don't know how to feel about that.
Any woman's trauma has to be related to her vagina. That's just how it works, Laura. We can't have any other trauma.
I don't know how to feel about it. So yeah.
But it's amazing. People don't have notes, you know?
No notes? Wow.
I don't know. I haven't seen a single episode.
Not really. Okay. I'm gonna keep that comment to myself. I will not say it.
We also talked about The Patient, but I also watched The Woman King in theaters this weekend. And
how was it?
So good. Like
it looks really good. Every time a preview comes on for it, I'm just like, I stop what I'm doing and just stare at the TV like, I need to watch it.
Here's the thing. It is the perfect throwback to like old historical movies we had, like The Patriot and like Gladiator, but like better. Like the plotting is very similar to those movies. But in such a way that it's like, yes, but also like in the perfect way that like there's also randomly like a eunuch character who is like coded to be queer, and he's just existing in the movie as like one of the king's like advisors, and it's never brought up as like, isn't it amazing that you know, and the king is a historical fiction. I will say like look up the actual historical accuracy of this, because it's not technically accurate, because they cast them as liberators to Black people, when the actual king historically was not that. He did in fact enslave other Black people who were not in Africa. That is something that happened in Africa a lot. Read Homegoing by Yagyasi if you want to learn more about that.
Yeah, that's on my TBR. So
it's great. But there was a lot of like, because white people were enslaving Africans, people of different tribes would often capture people and sell them to the white men. And in this, it's very much like, let's remove ourselves from these like white men. And it's great. It's not historically accurate. Most historical retellings are not historically accurate. So I don't think that that's a reason to not see this, but like recognize that people have been talking about that who are much smarter than me on the topic. Read about it yourself. That's just, it didn't deter me from seeing the movie, but it let me know.
It's just something to be aware of.
Yes. It's something to be like, context is key. But Viola Davis is amazing.
I appreciate that.
I loved the look at like paternal feelings or maternal feelings in this. Like it's so good to watch these women warriors just like exist. They fight. They, you know, have discussions about like, we don't take any husbands, we don't have any children, and what that means for us and what it means to be like a wife, or freedom, and what is freedom when you are not fully free. It's fascinating. It's so good. It's like the only bad part, and like everyone who's reviewing it is like, the love story doesn't need to be in here. You could just rip it out and nothing changes.
I feel that way about a lot of movies where it's like, don't force a love story.
Right.
It's fine without.
But it is amazing to watch. They have like little nuance, like things that happen in the beginning that run through. It's perfectly plotted. It's a great movie. I really like it. Go see it.
Okay.
Like, everyone's watching it. It's huge. The director is doing like great things. She was the director of Love and Basketball, which is one of the great, like,
I like that movie.
Right? Like, it's such a good movie. So she did that. She did Beyond the Lights. She did The Old Guard. So like, I listened to Blank Check with Griffin and David. They do like directors who have like massive success, and they do their entire filmography about like their blank checks sometimes bounce because they make a bad movie. And they did her, and they did it like with the intention of like, we know she's going to do great things, so let's watch all of her old stuff and like know it now. And they just reviewed this movie, and they're like, we were right, she's doing amazing things. And like, she was even like a little bit they shot it in Africa, West Africa, and Omicron came down, so she actually got like shackled because she couldn't have as many people in it. She couldn't have like certain choreography. People had to like relearn certain fight scenes, and she did it, and it's amazing. So people go watch it. It's awesome. But yeah, so I really enjoyed the movie. I saw it. It was nice. There were some high schoolers who snuck in and were loud, and the person I was with, I was like, were you bothered by that? They were like, no. And I was like, me neither. They're high school kids. I don't know. High schoolers sneak into movies.
I mean, they could have snuck into a worse movie, so
right. I was like,
at least they're being smart about it.
Part of me was like, dudes, like, you're seeing the last 30 minutes of a very excellent movie.
They snuck in at the end
because like they did the thing that teenagers do, which is like, we don't want to go home yet, but our movie got out, so let's just go to some random movie where we can like kill time. And I'm like, but this is a good movie. You're wasting it. Like, that is a waste. Very funny. But you know, they're kids. They have all the time in their world to not watch The Woman King, but you should. But yeah, so it was really good. Awesome. I enjoyed it. Good movie times. So with that, should we dive into it?
Let's do it.
We come in on part 2 in a flashback, and I see a theme for this book, which is lots of flashbacks.
Yeah, lots of them.
And it's like Riga standing, like talking about the state of the earth with the god of water and fire, and how they created the world because they quarreled and they split the sky apart. And like the blue ceramic of the world cracked and fell to the earth, and the earth and its greenery was exposed to darkness, like yolk inside it, shattering at an egg. And he's like, that's a nice thought, isn't it? And Daji is like, no.
This gives me such vibes. Like, if this were a movie that this would be like told, or a TV show maybe would be better. They could do 3 movies. Okay, so this would be a part of a movie, so it'd be too hard to do it in this flashback. This would have to be a TV show. But you would open on this episode where it starts off like animation, you know what I mean? Where this story is being told like this, like, and then you cut into Riga telling this to Daji. And that's kind of how I pictured it when I was reading it. And I was like,
it's also so funny because he's sitting there and she's like, what is he telling me, a bedtime story? Like,
exactly. She thought it was like a fairy tale. Like, she's like, this is really disturbing. Like, this, you think this is like a fairy tale? What the heck?
And she's like, I'm an adult. Like, and it's noted he's become erratic and they can't trust him. She's being overly cautious and she's wondering what's going on with him. And he says she's self-righteous because women think they can mend the sky like Nuwa did after the fight over the earth. And she's like, I'm really confused. And he's like, well, history repeats itself. The 2 men in this will break the world and you will mend it. And it's like, that seems really sexist.
Yeah.
You don't seem like a great guy.
You don't seem great. I wonder why. We'll find out.
Very soon. There are explosions outside and she thinks Riga has doomed them. He is excited and he puts a hand on her hip and she's like, are you really turned on right now? Which is like the biggest like,
and she says something too about like the weird things were turning him on or whatever. You would be turned on by like something disgusting. I'm like, oh, ew.
Well, and also like it's pretty much like they never stay explicitly like, yeah, Riga and Dashi had a romantic relationship, but like every like Daji POV, it's like, yeah, we have a romantic relationship, and it's gotten complicated.
It's really taken a turn.
Yeah. He's excited by the explosions, even though she thinks he's doomed to them. She's worried about Zia, and he notes he will be here soon. She indicates that like this might be Zia's breaking point, and he's like, nope, he loves us. And she's like, are you kidding? Zia storms in, good timing. And he's like, what happened on Spear? He asks where Viceroy's ships were to protect them, and Riga states that they had to do this. He notes that Zia was always so fond of Hanalei, and he may have wanted to marry the Spearly general, but Riga believed in purity of the Nikaran race, so he believes in eugenics. Flashback to last week's episode. Zia is horrified, but when Riga did with what he did, and Riga throws in his face all of Zia's own war crimes and what he did to Severai, which Zia says he can't be blamed for. Riga's like, it's never your fault, but you did that. Like, you actively participated. And it's like, that's fair. A broken clock can be right twice a day.
Yeah.
He says he let Hanalei...
It's one of those situations, though, where, because they bring this up again to him, and I actually keep going. We'll get there.
Okay. He says that he let Hanalei go to her death because at the end of the day, Zia knows Spearleys can't self-govern themselves. And Hanalei's people were never good at being free. He's terrible. Zia says that he wants him dead. Riga slaps him and says he rescued them both from the Hesperians and brought them to the hinterlands, which also shows like he lived with the Catraids and he can't even use the correct pronunciation of their name. Right. So yeah, Riga wants Zia to bow and Dashi wants him to comply, and Zia just can't, even though he's terrified. Zia turns to Dashi and he's like, are you not going to say anything? But she doesn't do anything. And he's angered, and Riga says she knows what's best. Zia goes to fight him. Riga asks if he will go against him as a brother, and Zia says they aren't brothers. Dashi reflects on the future and what happens next, quoting the prophecy. And she breaks them apart, and she makes an incantation. Venom comes from her and goes into their minds, and unfurling, Riga collapses, and Zia reels back. She can feel the echo of Severai's laugh. We cut over to a military report about the Nikara Republic, formerly Empire of Nikon, to the Office of Foreign Affairs in Hesperia. They note the trade continues to reveal that this is a huge asset for the consortium's investment. Jade, mining, other things, tea and minerals, local goods. They help everything. The craftsmanship is amazing and they don't have to pay imports on it. The Gray Company represents the Holy Maker and encountered difficulties with people. They don't appear to be overtly religious, so they're not going against the Gray Company on that end, but they really don't like the social discipline with the religion, like weekly worship. And I was like, fair enough.
I thought that was kind of funny, though. They're like, they've got really like a lot of resources here and everything. Here's the problem. They don't want to come to Sunday service.
And it's like, yeah, the church is still trying to figure out how to deal with that too.
I know. Oh my gosh.
They don't think that they'll have an uprising, though. They think the domestic fears they had are over. The South is still complicated with Rin, who has chaos inside her. Obviously, she's evil if she could be more powerful than them.
The way that they're like, look, here's the deal. Chaos is still reigning. But the thing is, we've got it kind of under control. There's only two issues. One of them is Rin, who, you know, we're not even going to worry about her. The other one we have totally under control. It's Yin Vysra's son, and he's no problem at all. He's no problem at all. I'm like, oh gosh.
And then they're like, their gods won't save them. It's signed by Josephus. Still the funniest name she's ever thought of. What is your name? I am Josephus. Rin wakes up on the floor and she realizes that they're in a dirigible going up to Chulu Creek. Dashi is getting her to eat and cleaned up after being beaten, saying that they need to go to get Zia. Rin is like, don't do this. He hates it here. He can't help us. Let me take over. And Dashi is like, no one trusts you. You're not useful to me. I need Zia. And states she needs him, so he has to leave. And Rin was like, well, I need him, and he turned me down. And Dashi is like, he's my anchor, so I might outplay
I know him
you.
a little better than you. I think I kind of have seniority here, so
I'm more important than you in this scenario. And Rin has never thought about another person in her life.
It's like but
that.
I needed him.
And she's like, yeah, guess what? People exist without you being around them. And I'm like, that's a really hard lesson to learn, Rin. I agree, but still.
She's still having a hard time with it.
I know. They get to Chulu Creek real quick, and Rin realizes how small their world seems compared to the technology of the Hesperians. And she said, no wonder they think they own the world. They take Rin in, and she's fighting and screaming. The soldiers tell her to shut up. They go in. She thinks of jumping over the edge into the abyss, but she can't do it. She realizes she can't kill herself. Daji mirrors Rin, and Rin freaks out, realizing she is still terrible at meditating and feeling like she wishes
This
she were
is so
dead.
interesting, though, where she's trapped in this stone and she's like alive, but she feels like she's suffocating, but she's not. I was fascinated by this and how if she could just meditate, you know, to kind of like block this out. I was fascinated by this.
And she was like, oh, this is what he always tried to teach me. And guess what? I never learned.
Why didn't I learn this?
That's my therapist once told me that meditation is you're literally working out your brain. And so like, why do we think we're going to be perfect at meditation when we don't like lift up a 50-pound weight at first?
Right.
Like you always start with a 5-pound weight. So why would you do this to yourself? And I'm like, that is so fair. And like, damn, it's hard to learn. It's so hard to learn to be like, why can't I have good habits immediately? Why can't I do 10 good things at once? And it's like, because your brain is also a muscle. Be respectful of the muscle that it is.
Atomic Habits, James Clear. Everyone read it.
I have not read it, but I have read The Power of Now, which is all about the ego. So I know why we do it, but I don't know how to change it. She thinks on her past and her memory. She goes down memory lane with Neja, of course. Then Alton shows up and he's like, what are we doing here? And she's like, well, betrayal like happened to me. And he mocks her over it. He yells at her for failing to kill Neja and failing the South. He calls her stupid and starts hitting her. And she realizes that the stone is shaking and this is all like partially a dream. The stone shatters and she can breathe. Daji is there and she screams at her, but Xiang is there and he's talking to her and being like, oh, you never really learned how to do this well, huh? You never learned how to meditate. She yells at him for leaving her and he's like, come on, life is complicated. And like, it's like, I had to do this. This wasn't exactly heaven for me. He says that he couldn't have saved Alton. And she says he left her. And he says like, now he has to protect the people. Then she asks why he can do it now. And he's like, look, the book says it's time for me to come back, Rin. So I am back. It's time. The book said so.
They really used the whole like seal and him not remembering things to a lot of convenience in this book, to the point where it's almost irritating.
We love these books, don't get me wrong. Some of this stuff, like
some of this, I'm like, things are getting a little too convenient. And Kuang wanted to write Babel, you can tell.
She was like, I'm so done with this book. Because I was like, there's so many drop plot lines where I was like, really? We didn't get to see Shogun become the leader of the 100 clans?
A lot of this is rushed, and you can tell that she really just wants to write Babel. And she's just like, I'm done.
She's like, look, I was 18 when I started writing these books. I am now
you enjoyed the Poppy War, right? You're not going to abandon it. I'll just finish this up real quick and then go to Babel.
Oh, and then just keep writing amazing books. But it's like, come on, you could have given us another book and let us see like Shotgun become a leader or like given us anything else. But no.
She's over it.
She's very over it. She is us when we were reading Wheel of Time.
No, she's better than us. She put more effort in.
I put in effort every week to read the synopsis off of a website.
I was really struggling.
Okay. Anyway, they leave the mountain and Dashi looks much better like instantly. So does Young. They have to march because
they're like instantly young.
I know. And then Daji is like, hey, we can't fly that dirigible down the mountain.
Did you know what that was?
Okay, so it's like a blimp.
Okay, I thought it was a plane just from like context clues, but then I had to Google it and be like, oh, it's a blimp. Okay.
Yeah. I kind of knew it was a blimp from like the way they described it, but I was also like, it seems like a fancy blimp. Like
I was thinking it was a plane
blimp.
because I'm like, okay, they have all this technology or whatever, but
I knew it was a blimp or a helicopter. I didn't think it was a plane.
I was just thinking the way they described the inside of it. I was like, okay, maybe this is a plane.
Right. And then she was like, you couldn't have killed all the people before. And Dashi was like, no, I think you needed to get humble by knowing what it felt like to be immured, to like learn about the consequences of your own actions. Which Dashi never learns about the consequences of her own actions. So I don't know what she's pointing a finger at.
She likes to teach everybody else a lesson, but never learn on herself.
Kettle, that pot over there is telling you you're both black.
Right.
So anyway, Rin catches Zhang up on what happened in the books, just like I do every week.
Quick synopsis.
They decide to go get Tai back as her anchor. They discuss the South, and Zhang is like, they all have to die, the leaders who betrayed you. And this shocks Rin because he's so different. He tells her she's really bad at this. And
she's like, I've never killed anybody before. I can't do this. And they're like, you literally killed a guy. And she's like, but he was dying. And they're like, you just
doesn't matter.
It's the same thing.
And then she's like, this is really bad. And he's like, and they're both like, we killed Farika all the time. And they're like, we have to bring him down. And they like, you have to become a myth. So you have to be willing to do this. And she says that they're underestimating people because people aren't going to like just believe she's a legend overnight. And Dashi is like, you worshipped Alton, didn't you? And she's like, how dare you? She's like, well, people like power, Rin.
Right.
And they tell her she can't lead with the committee. She has to like lead as a ruler. And it's like, this feels like you're turning her into Dashi in book 1, but okay.
Yeah.
And they give her tips on how to be an effective leader. They start traveling. Rin reflects on the war and how it's still existing, and how the Third Poppy War wasn't a victory and mattered less and less about her total annihilation of an entire people. She feels stupid for her past self, thinking that she could get rid of the Federation and everything would be okay. They get to Boer province and they realize that everything is being destroyed. The Civil War isn't over. They had gotten obliterated. The South did, for their impudence. Viceroy went back on his promise that when she wasn't, because she wasn't delivered. And they know that they have like a jelly that burns things like that could rival Rin.
I was trying to figure out what this was as well, but I could not figure it out.
I figured it was just like petroleum jelly
that kills people.
Well, I mean, like it's like they light it on fire.
Well, I guess I was thinking this is more mystic than.
Oh, I just figured it was science.
Oh, I guess I was thinking this was like some kind of mystic thing.
Oh, no.
That it's a jelly that catches fire, but they're literally lighting fire to petroleum jelly is what they're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, I totally missed that. I had this problem with some of these fantasy and sci-fi books where I try to like make things more mystical than they actually are.
I mean, that's okay. I mean, you get to do that. It can be mystical jelly.
That's really what I was thinking, because I'm like, oh wow, what is this?
This is amazing. And it's like, it's napalm. But no, I'm pretty sure it's just petroleum jelly.
Okay.
They talk about how they took down dirigibles and their air warfare during the time of like the last Hesperian occupation. And they know how like Hesperians are pretty much terrorists. They come at random times. They had to fight them off. The seal is also eroding during this time. So they hear from Zhang as he once was. He's gotten familiar, yet he's very different. He still teases Rin about her hair, how she acted with the Southern Coalition. And then he finds out she liked Neja. And this part made me laugh out loud, where he goes, there's no accounting for taste.
I agree, Zhang. Like, I
always use like a purple tab to mark like sections that I want to think about later for this, because it's a purple book. But I tabbed that in pink because it made me giggle.
Because it's funny.
I tabbed 2 things in pink in this book. I'll tell you the other one. But she asks if he remembers her one day, and he says that he does, but he's still different. He like still has some of his memories, but sometimes they fail. And realizing what he did in his past hurts him a lot, in more ways than she can imagine.
How do you feel about Rin like holding on to the image that she has of people and then finding out that they're not exactly how she pictured them?
Well, it's the whole thing of like Rin is the main character in her own head. Like everything and everyone is meant to play in the Rin's like game. And her biggest failing is she fails to recognize that other people exist without her. And they are fully formed beings. And like, this is what she does time and time again. But I think it's a trauma response, honestly. like, not to overuse that, because I do think people use trauma
Sure.
responses more and more, and it's losing the effectiveness of the word. But I think where Rin is concerned, she always wants to glom on to this perfect image because there's a lot of self-loathing inside of her.
Sure.
And there's a lot of like, I've done so many horrible things, but I have to believe in the good of the world, and I have to believe that other people see something that I don't, or I'm failing in such a unique way. And she's a huge, like, she's human. I think that it all
Sure.
comes down to like, Rin is one of the characters I felt the most human for. Like, I just feel like she is a fully formed human
Sure.
in ways that I haven't read
the way that the
before.
other characters, you know, can immediately pick out problems. You're like, wait, no, that can't be right.
Right. And her being like, do you remember me? Like, she's just a little kid at the end of the day.
Sure.
Like, and if you think about it, she's like 21. She's a virgin who can't drive.
Sure.
To quote Clueless. But like, she just hasn't experienced much of the world outside of war. And so she is like,
yeah, she has war, her schooling. That's it.
And so she's like so stagnant on all the other things. So it doesn't shock me when like, if you're a kid who was taught only survival, and then you went to the school where everything felt in its place, you're going to try to like keep that. But like, what you learn from that is to always listen to the leadership above you and to fall in line. And that's what Rin likes to do. So it goes back to our like prior discussions on Rin about the whole, like, she is someone who shouldn't be a leader, but she's too powerful not to be.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard thing to watch when someone does that. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think for me, I found it maybe a little more simple than that, even, where it was just like the way that as a kid, you see a teacher outside of school and you're like, wait, they have a life? Like, you put them up on this pedestal almost, and you think that they can do no wrong, especially if it's a teacher you like, that you have this vision of them, and when they don't meet that perfect vision, you know, you see them getting chicken nuggets at Target or whatever, and they've been your health teacher and telling you to eat this or that, and you're like, wait a minute. I mean, that's a really bad example, but it's just interesting, you know, to see that's how she views people that she's, you know, kind of idolized in a way where she's like, oh, they're people too. Wow, I'm not the only one who has flaws and emotions. And so I just think that's kind of interesting.
There was a TikTok of a guy who I follow who's a pre-K teacher. And he is like very fit. He's young, and he like went to the gym. He took off his shirt, and then he went to get gas, and like one of the moms saw him, and she was like, it's really inappropriate that you're at this gas station without your shirt on. And he's like,
I have a life.
He's like, I exist outside the school, and I am outside the school. Like, I would walk into school like this. Right. This is none of your business. So yeah.
People.
I know. And she kind of asks if he'll be the same man once like they remove the seal. And he's kind of like, no, Rin. That's not how this works.
And it's almost a little sad too, that she really just wants to hold on to people and who she thought they were. It's a very I don't know if immature is the right word, but I
don't think it's immature by any means.
It's not immature, but kind of a younger person.
It's naive.
Yeah, naivety. Yeah. Where you really want people to kind of live up to the expectations and the image that you had in your mind.
Right. But they start getting closer to Arabak, and she starts sensing Katai again. Arabak has been renamed the New City by the Hesperians. And it's like they kind of give a background that this used to be a military base for the Red Emperor. They get inside using Daji's powers, which are getting stronger. New City has been taken over by the Hesperians. It's been stripped of anything that made it unique to the Nakaran Empire. It's like all straight lines. It's harsh. There's no lanterns.
Yeah, they just like knocked everything down and made a bunch of skyscrapers, basically.
There's no lanterns. There's no banners. There's no pagoda roofs. She notes that this is the first city that hasn't been integrated with the old of Nicarab, and it only took 6 months to completely wipe out any of them. Daji notes that this is a history that doesn't include them, and that's why it unsettles Rin so much. She carves a message into her skin for Katai, asking where he is. They wander around a little bit. They say a new social order that exemplifies what they need, including 4 precepts: propriety, righteousness, frugality and modesty. It also outlaws unhygienic practices. And like what it says isn't wrong, but Rin is horrified by the way they seem to like talk about Nikarans, like they're animals,
like they're dirty people or whatever. Because like Jong says something like, "What's wrong with washing your hands?" And she's like, "It's not that. It's not that washing your hands is bad. It's just like the way that they assume like we don't wash our hands before we touch food. Like what the heck?"
Well, and they were like, but that's true about some people at Syndergaard. And it's one of those things where it's like, but you're not recognizing the context of like, was it happening in poorer regions? Was it happening when people didn't have any other like choice? Like
people didn't have the access to
like they're pretending it's because they're lesser people and not for other reasons. She asks why they want to be here so badly if they have their own cities, and Dashi notes that they want to improve the Nikarans and think that it's a divine mandate, which is dangerous. She wonders why people didn't fight and seem to accept all of this, and then she remembers Petra calling them that herd-like people, and she wonders if that's true. There's a lot of like interesting connotations with like self-loathing and, you know, being told something that you like internalize.
This is why I'm saying like in this part I was really feeling like Kuang wanted to write Babel.
Oh yeah,
there was so many
like
there's so many vibes in this.
Yeah. Zhang points out that they brought women with them and they're all wearing hoop skirts. Then Katai sends Rin a message. She tries to give them a description of where he is, and Rin realizes they've kept him in a church dungeon.
Which, okay, two things. First of all, the hoop skirt comment that she makes where she's like, "Oh my gosh, are they shaped like that?" He's like, "No, they're not just shaped like that. They put like wires under there to make the dresses like that." Good Lord. But
God, Rin, you can't just ask if people are shaped like that.
So funny. That made me laugh. But then the other thing, this is more serious, but I thought it was interesting how Kuang writes in here something about like, oh, only Hesperians would like keep people captive in a place where they also want people to come and worship.
Yep. Edifying. They go inside while mass is going on. Sorry, I call it mass. 13 years of Catholic
service.
School. I can't call it. Yeah, service. Thank you. I couldn't think of what mass is called outside of a Catholic church context.
Service.
Thank you. Service. Don't come at me. I knew it was called something else. I just couldn't think about it. Rin goes down as they keep watch, and she finds Katai. He looks relatively okay. He asks who she's with, and she's like 2/3 of the trifecta. She gets inside using the key that Dashi got earlier from one of the soldiers, and they start hearing footsteps. Katai tells her to hide, and Nezha shows up. He starts acting like a Bond villain and telling Katai everything he can. Katai,
what an idiot! I'm like, Nezha, do not monologue and try to ask Katai for help. Good Lord.
It's just so funny. Like, Nezha and Rin are obviously meant for each other. They're both the dumbest people in the
so
world.
Self-centered.
So self-centered. And they both just use Katai, where I'm like, Katai, walk away. Like you are obviously the Dashi character in this, and like get out. Like she should have done. Like break away from this. Yeah, anyway. So he starts like Katai mocks him for being a lab rat. Nezha notes that he likes being studied because it's the only time he doesn't hurt. Nezha notes the council still gives him grief and they're all madmen. Nezha notes that the Northerners need more money, but they don't have it. And Katai is like, yeah, your generals are stealing from you, you idiot. He notes that like,
he's like, they probably all have like really nice in-ground pools and stuff like that and water slides. So
and they're all talking about you behind their back, calling you the young general. And he says that he's spoiled and stupid, just like Jinja. And she realizes that she felt like Nezha had all this power, but he isn't holding it together. And it's like, duh, Rin, come on. Like,
she's like, I thought Nezha was all powerful.
I thought that when he agreed to be like, let these imperialist awful men in,
what?
Believe
I
that they're
he had this all figured out.
I cannot believe it.
Me reading. Mega eye roll. I
thought he was all powerful. Rin, you have all of the rose-colored glasses on for this man.
The way that she just assumes that he can overcome anything and be amazing is
Rin.
Mind-blowing.
He's just a little boy with a crippling like pain disorder, or like, oh my God.
Yeah, he has chronic pain.
He has chronic pain. and he's just wandering around feeling pain all the time. And he's a little boy who just wants his daddy's love, and he's never going to get it, Rin. That's not all powerful.
He can't do anything right, but he's handsome.
But he's handsome through that cracked skin.
Oh.
Okay, but Nikarans are getting blamed for every loss because they have a lack of fighting spirit, air quotes, and racism.
What?
Neja notes that there's nothing wrong with the troops, but they are integrating forces to coordinate attacks. And it's like, that's not a good idea. Come
right.
on. Neja wants to still earn the Hesperians respect. And I said at this, Katai is like,
right. Why keep trying?
Stop.
They don't respect you. Give up on that idea.
Respect you. We're never gonna make fetch happen. I'm on a Mean Girls kick this episode.
Yeah,
so sorry, guys.
Several references.
I also did Clueless. So Katai refuses to help him further. Neja is like, Rin sucker people into an all or nothing, but we can still help everyone. And Katai is like, nah, she's dead now. And Neja thinks that she's alive.
No, I would feel it. I would know.
I would know. And Katai is like, I would know. I would be dead. So like, go away. But he said that they would have died without her or given up. Neja says he didn't want this war and she should understand. And Katai is like, dude, you stabbed her in the back.
Literally.
And he says that they would make her a general if she would just come back. And Katai is like, you stabbed her in the back. I'm not stupid. And
when he said we would make her a general, like
Neja,
we were united. We were
all one. We were the Musketeers.
We were doing so many good things.
One for all and all for one. Does that mean nothing to you guys? That means nothing to them. He notes that they had once been, oh yeah, there we go. And he has now dropped a bomb on innocent children. So she's never going to forgive him. Like he killed a bunch of innocents and the ship has sailed for Katai ever thinking he needs help.
Right.
Neja's like, that's a mistake. And Katai is like, no, you've shown us you don't care about the South. You drew a line in Arlong and you started the war and that's what's happening. And I'm a good ally. So I'm not going to like let you treat these people like they're not people.
Right.
Neja leaves. Katai apologizes, but he's like, I think you needed to hear that.
He's like, you needed to hear what a mess he is.
And in her mind, she's like, Katai is so resilient. And it's like, stop obsessing over people, Rin. You need to calm down 10 notches.
You back it up.
And they escape with her killing a few of the guards. They get out really quickly with no real hiccups because the plot needs to keep on moving.
So many convenient things happening. So many convenient things happening.
And Katai, everyone takes Young showing up in stride. They're all like, "Oh, hey, Professor, how you doing?"
Also, the way that they say like, "Oh, we have 2/3 of the trifecta," and they're like, "Okay, cool."
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
I do like later on, Becca goes, what, the shadow puppets?
Yeah. She's
funny.
the only one that correctly identifies what's going on because everyone else, they're like, he's the gatekeeper. And they're like, oh, cool. Okay, cool.
He notes that the new city is only called by the Hesperians because Rin never thought to like, hey, maybe they just only called that around imperialists. I don't know.
Right.
Daji notes that she overheard people shit talking Neja and they wish Jinja was still alive. At this moment, Zhang is like, that asshole, what happened to him? And Daji goes, I served him to Viceroy in a dumpling basket after he got plucky. And Zhang goes, darling, fucking what? And this is the moment I fell in love with their characters and I wanted them to become beat cops together and like their own offshoot. I just want them solving crimes together.
The way that I pictured him saying it though was more like, darling, what?
I loved it so much. That was the other pink tab I put on.
Appropriate.
Yeah. Katai notes that Neja is being split in too many ways and the war isn't going well for them. They are apparently so stretched that they haven't been able to go after the dog province. And Rin is like, we'll send the troops there then. And Daji goes, it's a bad guest who shows up unannounced. And Rin goes, not if the third guest is holding a knife to the host's throat. And then John goes, this analogy has lost me.
Yeah.
Comedic gold. I don't care what you say. I love Shog in these moments. Katai sounds weird as he discusses the war. It sounds like he's like repeating memorized test answers, like he's just going through the motions, and it sounds like he thinks they've already
He's
lost.
just kind of really burnt out.
Yeah. The trifecta members decide to break the South out of an area they're being kept in the mountains and then take them to Dog Province. That night, she talks to Katai, who's going through a lot of her complicated feelings about the Hesperians being better than them. He's note that they've like traveled more. They seem to get places faster. And he does wonder if like they are better. She wonders.
He's like, look, they built this whole city. Like they have all of these things, like all this technology. I don't know what to think here.
And she's like, well, maybe it's their religion. And he's like, well, their creator's more technology friendly, but it also seems like they have a lot to work with and we just can't. And she realizes he thinks it's inevitable that they have to surrender. He says that there are worse things and like they're doing a lot worse than they've ever been doing. And he's not sure it's worth the struggle. Mm-hmm. And so she, and like one of the most edifying moments of Rin is like, you don't really realize how I was treated at Synagard, do you? You don't realize that people thought I was dirty and gross and like not meant to pass. And she's like, what you're saying is like logically because I was mistreated, I deserved it because I was less than. And do you believe that? And he's like, no. And she's like, okay, because like that's what the Hesperians are doing to you right now. They go over their plan to kind of have a strategic retreat, which is going on right now, then go into a stalemate and then a counter effective. But they have to have the gods to do this. He realizes that she is going to unleash the Dragon Emperor, and he's worried that they're all crazy. They get to the mountain where the South is trapped because we're getting through this plot whether we like it or not.
We gotta get to Babel.
We gotta get to Babel, guys.
That interaction between Rin and Katai, that was like her Babel was showing there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Apparently like there are workers stuck in there with the Southern Coalition as well because they hate working there and they were easy to convince to like hide them. They swim into a tunnel, they go find Venka and maybe
which was hard to do, but they did find her.
I know. And they're
like, we need any ally we can get. And they're like, okay.
She gives her the lowdown on everything. She says they tried to convince everyone Rin was dead. She gets the people all riled up because they're frustrated with how bad Suji and the monkey warlord are doing. Mm-hmm. And they trust her with the fact that they brought 2/3 of the trifecta and one is Zhang. And she's like, last time I saw him, he was trying to cut my hair. And Rin's like, yeah, he's pretty much the same. And it's like, no, he's not.
No,
Rin.
He's not.
You've had many a conversation about how he's not, but okay. And then they find out that Viceroy is coming to inspect the troops the next day because of plot.
Mm-hmm.
The next day they prepare for battle. Zhang goes out to the front and he's able to shimmer and distort the entire world, and the sky explodes with black inked monsters. And she realizes how amazing the trifecta is. And Becca's like, oh my gosh, he is amazing. And Rena's like, you've seen me do stuff. And she's like, not that.
Fair enough.
The South starts fighting. It's easier for Rin to call the Phoenix with Zhang like already opening up the gates. Mm-hmm. They bring down airships, one that obviously has Viceroy in it. Rin goes up to him and she's like, oh my gosh, he is dying with grace. And then he's like, you are never going to amount to anything. And he's like, you should be dead. And she's like, obviously. And then she kisses him in one of the worst moments that made me want to throw up.
Why? I don't understand.
I don't get it. There's no reason for it. That was one of my most baffling moments. And she kills him by throwing flames down his throat. That I can understand, but did you have to put your lips on his lips?
But why kiss him?
But why kiss? But why male models?
But why?
But why kiss him? She enjoys the revenge. Zhang collapses and they get him inside. He whispers that he sees Riga and he's coming. They flee into the tunnels. Zhang is passed out, but Daji says he will get better. Rin blames Daji for this, and she's like, I kept him alive. Like, stop being so awful to me. Go away. Katai comes up and says that the monkey warlord and Suji are trying to get their troops to flee. He's horrified when he finds out that Rin intends to kill them. And Rin's like, listen, I already talked about this a couple chapters ago with these two. We've agreed.
Let me catch you up real quick in one sentence. We already talked about this.
We already talked about it. I had the same feelings as you did. You're just repeating. You're repeating some of this, okay? She takes care of the monkey warlord Gurabai first, noting he would have been a hero if he hadn't gambled with Rin's life.
She's like, if this were peace times, like you would have been a great leader.
Well, and
unfortunately, that's not the situation.
We need to burn. But it also notes that like, hey, he could have won by gambling with my life, and he would have been like this great hero who like stopped the spirally.
Right.
But instead, like, it's a whim of history, which I love that phrasing, a whim of history, and he dies a disgraced traitor. Katai shows up even though he didn't want to be there, and he's like, you started without me. And it's like, Katai,
like, you don't need to be there.
Away. You don't need to be here right now. Suji tries to flee. She gets his men to turn on him.
She has this moment too with Suji where she's like, can't believe I was gonna sleep with him.
I know, I do love that, where she's like, oh my god, I could have lost my virginity to this fuck boy.
Good thing I'm holding out for Neja.
Yeah. I don't think that's gonna happen. She gets his men to turn on him. She hits him, but doesn't brutalize him like he did to her, and she kills him in front of all the. Well, she has all the people rip him apart for treason.
Well, I was gonna say she kicks him,
yeah,
but she does not horribly brutalize him. But she just kind of is like,
she lets other people do it for her.
Here is your leader. Take him apart. And they do.
She also kind of fudges the truth a little bit, where she's like, he collaborated with the North. And he's like, I was trying to give them over because they said that we could like have peace if we handed you over. And she's like, do you believe he's that dumb? And they're all like, no. And she's like, good, because I am lying.
Good, because I was bluffing.
And then the Southerners rip him apart, and she like walks away. She takes everyone out of the cavern and plans to go up the mountain to free Riga. She tells them it's to get to Dog Province because they're waiting there. But she's like, I'm not going to tell everyone everything. But Venka comes up to her and she's like, so are we getting the other trifecta member? Because we already have 2 and it's only useful if we have 3. And Rin's like, how did you figure out my plan? And she's like,
it's not that hard to figure out.
It's not that hard. It's not that hard.
Trifecta means 3 and we have 2. So that's how.
Come on, Rin. I'm not an idiot.
Rin, we went to the same school. We went to the same school. We both know that tri means 3.
And you're really bad at lying. You're just terrible at it. Also, here's how to keep scorpions out of your bed. During this time, they have a lot of like, in the background, there is a lot of like issues with Rin trying to melt snow, doing all this stuff. People resort to cannibalism throughout this, including 2 of the little girls that she had helped.
Yeah. And then Jiang is also really struggling since
in and out,
calling all of those gods. So
he calls her Hanalei, and she remembers the name from the Catreids. He tells her to kill him and to not release Riga. Daji comes in and she's like, don't worry about it. And she's like, who's Hanalei? And she's like, oh, she was just like a spirally general. Don't worry about it. And Rin's trying to figure out why Dashi sealed them all. It's noted Neja probably can't reach them at this altitude. So we don't have to worry about Neja right now. So we can we can keep on marching to Babel. They tell her that Neja is part of Riga's family, that Riga's father was the youngest brother to Viceroy's father. Rin finds interesting since one is a true shaman and one is just someone who has chronic pain under a perverted dragon. Riga's father was better leader than Viceroy's father. However, he had ruined a few of the Hesperian cargo ships and was sent to a work camp where he died. Then Riga was left alone, and he like found Zia and Dashi, and then they snuck out. And just so people know, Zia and Zhang are the same person. They're used interchangeably. When Daji's talking about him, she uses his given name. When Rin talks about him, she uses the name she knew him by. That is why.
Which his name is Zhang Zia, right?
Oh yeah, that's probably you're right.
Because Zia would be his first name. So
you're right. So she just calls.
She always just refers to him as Zhang because she always knew him as Master Zhang.
I didn't know that was his last name, only because like he is a famous person. So I didn't swear it was. No, you're probably right.
It's like Sudaji and.
Oh yeah, Zhang Zia. You're right. I guess I just never thought about it because I was like, then why did they never know that Zhang was the gatekeeper?
Several people with the exact same name and looked alike. Because here's the thing, they know what people look like. Because we find out later, she says something about, well, actually it's around this same time because she says something about why does Riga look so much like the Yin family? And she's like, oh, because they are the same family. And it's like, how would she know what he looked like? So literally, obviously we knew what all of the trifecta looked like, but nobody was like, hey, you know what? Master Zhang, that crazy lore guy, he kind of looks like one of the trifecta.
And his last name is the same last name as
He
one
has
of
the exact same
trifecta.
name as one of the trifecta. Odd.
Coinky dink, huh? I guess I don't know. Some of this plot doesn't make sense because I thought like 50 to 80 years had passed, and in this book they're like, well, we
20.
put you to sleep 20 years ago. And I was like, how?
Here's my thing. I thought the trifecta was like a long time ago, that they had been like doing this for decades.
Me too.
Many decades, like 100 or a century even, like that. Because when they talk about like being ageless or whatever, I'm thinking much more than 20 years.
Me too. I was shocked when I found out it was 20 years ago in this book. Like,
you didn't pay enough attention to the timeline, I guess, because I was also shocked, because I'm like, oh, okay, she had to get an ageless look again. Wait, what? 20 years?
What is she, like 40? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't understand. And I don't understand like why everyone is just like control copy pasted into like their genetics, and how like, and I recognize that like in the first book a lot of people were like, Zhang, I remember you took down my entire thing, and it's like, at this point I thought he had been like gone long enough that like they knew he was a master general but not part of the trifecta, but in the context of this everyone knew he was the gatekeeper.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly
that doesn't make sense. Okay,
but that's exactly what's happening.
I know. It's just, I mean,
it doesn't make sense, but that's exactly what's happening. We've all been fooled.
Babel is a masterpiece, guys. She really
wanted to write Babel, so she kind of just threw away some things here. This of all three books, this is the messiest for sure. Yeah, it's still really good, but it's definitely messy.
It's definitely messy. They tell,
even with some of the language, I noticed, like, we picked out some funny moments and stuff, but I'm like, really, the way that the characters spoke to each other in previous
there were
novels was a lot more poetic. Like,
yes,
there was a moment very informal.
Rin used like a random word that I was like, that's a 2020 word. That's not like a
like, it's, the language in this is very informal, and it was and very modern.
Yeah, it was very modern.
Like, that's odd.
Yeah, it is very modern in this book, which is this felt I could feel
it's a rushed book.
Yeah, it's a rushed book. See, guys, we can have criticisms for Kuang. She's one of our favorite writers so far, but this book is messy.
Yeah.
But anyway, Riga found the two kids like around the work camp. They snuck out because she was like, how'd you sneak out? They were like, well, they didn't care about children. They cared about like workers.
Nobody pays attention to us.
And then they were found by the Catraids, who took them in and trained them. And Rin's like, they hate you now. And Daji's like, yeah, but like, we needed to save our world and they weren't going to do that. So we did what we needed to do. Daji reveals Hanalei was a Spearly general, like I said before, who was brave but stupid because she defied Riga. Rin tries to drug Daji to go talk to Zhang to figure out who Hanalei is, but he's barely there enough to tell her who she is. He rambles about the children and how he should have stopped her, but she shouldn't have told him. And if it hadn't been for the children, she may have tried to get out. It would have been different. She would have left. And he can't tell her, saying that remembering brings Riga closer. Katai is frustrated that they don't know more. And they deal with more and more frustration. And Rin wonders if the Hesperians want to drain Nikarans of whatever makes them special. And then they keep marching, and Katai points to a blossom showing that they are on a descent. They keep going, noting Dog Province is a real wasteland. They arrive at the pseudo like working capital for them, and she meets the new warlord, Sholang. He offers them a place to stay, but won't get in the fight. She tells him that they are going to mount Tianshan, and he's like, no one comes back from there alive. And she tells him that 4 people will.
4 people will.
She is given a place to sleep with Katai, and she's like, I'll take first watch. And then all of a sudden, Shogun is like, hey, I'm here, in such a whiplash
weird
way that I forgot who Shogun was. Like, that's how
fast
it
random.
happened.
Too random.
And I was like, who's Shogun? And then I was like reading, and I'm like, he was also way too friendly with her.
Yes.
Like, the way he comes in, I'm like,
and she even says something about it too. Like, it's weird how we used to like not get along. I'm like, what?
It's so weird. It's just, it was a whiplash of a moment. he is just there to drop some plot
Mhm.
bombs.
You know what? We need Rin to discover her past. You know how we could do it? Let's bring Shagan back real quick.
You know what Rin needs to figure out? That Hannah is probably her mother. That's because we copy and paste genes here.
We need multiple people that are exactly alike.
We need to really put a hat in a hat with this. He knows that he's the new leader of the Catraids. He looks amazing, but he's like, yeah, I'm dying.
Which odd.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that.
Well, it's because he's lost his anchor.
So, but he looks amazing.
I feel like he's just deteriorating because he's spending too long in the spirit world. So it like gives him a lot of power, but it's kind of like when you have like the last like breath before you die because you're going too far into the spirit world kind of thing. Like it both makes you look better, but it is eating away at your soul kind of thing. That's kind of how I took it.
Okay.
Maybe I'm giving her too much credit.
I think you're maybe giving too much credit, but that's fine. Let's go with that.
The Catraids are like very helpful to the dog province. So Sholang let him come in. He takes her to an empty area where like all of his people are, and she's like, get them to put down their weapons. And he's like, oh, fine. I thought we were friends. And it's like, no, you didn't. But he's like, I want to take you to the spirit world. I found a spirally who has information that you need.
I wonder who.
And he takes her to the spirit area and he shows her Hannah. The interaction is tumultuous because Hannah is all rage, and that's what's been keeping her like changed to this area. But she wants to show Rin something. Hannah reveals through broken moments that Riga let Spear burn because Hannah was going to tell the Muganese how all about shamanism and the pantheon. And he didn't want that to happen. And he thought spiralies were disposable animals, or at least that's what Rin thinks.
Sure.
And Shagan takes her back and he's like, so you're not going to let him out? And she's like, no, I'm still going to let him out. Like, we still need him. And he's not happy with her. She's like, survival is everything to me. Whatever happens, we'll deal with the next thing later. And I was like, that is the most Rin statement I've ever heard.
Strategy, but it makes sense for who it is.
It's like that. Wow, she really just distilled Rin into like a paragraph. Yeah. Like, listen, I'm going to do what I need to survive in this moment. And then whatever mess I leave myself, it'll happen. He's not happy with her, and he warns her that whoever leaves the mountain will like get their wrath.
Yeah.
They leave 7 days later. It's just Rin and the 2/3 of the trifecta. They go up the mountains. Some dirigibles show up, and Rin realizes that Nezha always knew where they were. And it's like, no shit, Sherlock. You brought an entire fleet up and down the mountain.
Tons of people with you.
It's not that hard. They climb quickly to get out of range, and they finally find the door to the 4 skies and a 9-story pagoda. As they dragged a deer up the mountain, which was very impressive. They take it in. It's noted how much the emperor looks like Nezha, because of course he does. They sacrifice the deer, and he wakes up with his dark eyes and piercing stare. He finds out he's only been gone for 20 years, not 80 to 100 like Laura and I thought.
Like we thought, like much less impressive.
It's so much less impressive. It's a really big letdown for me.
Honestly, like I had a lot higher hopes for the trifecta, and my hopes are really being crushed with this book.
Right? I know. I was like ready for an entire book about the complications of them and like the machinations of them. And she really just wanted to get to Babel.
Yeah, she was babbling.
She's like sprinting towards that next one.
Yeah, she was ready for Babel.
He's been drifting in the dark. He remembers he quarreled with them, and then he hits Daji, and Rin is like, what the fuck is going on? And it's like, Rin, everyone warned you. No one said you this knew, was a good idea. And then he's like,
obviously this is a bad this is like a bad choice. And even Zia like many times told you, like, don't wake him, and
kill us. Just kill us, Rin. You should kill us. You should stop this.
And Daji's like, oh, just ignore him.
Daji's like, I just really want to see my boyfriend that last one time because you and me are very similar, girl. We both can't let him go. So he assesses Rin, noting that she is short for spirally. And then Zia's like, leave her alone. And he's like, oh, you always like to keep your pets. She gets really mad. She's like, I'm not a dog. He berates Daji when she tries to step in and to defend Rin. the Phoenix wants her to kill him, but she's like, no, I'm gonna ask him for help. This is gonna go well.
Idiot.
And she knows all the bad he did, but she still needs his help. And then he's like, you don't know crap of what I did. And he digs into her memory.
The way that this is like portrayed is like so stupid to me, where it's almost like it's like Captain America and the Avengers being like, we got to do the right thing. And he's like, screw the right thing. We're not doing the right thing. I don't care about the right thing. It's kind of the vibe that I get. And it's like,
he's like, I'm going to just beat everyone in here and kill this Spearly when I have no context for what's going on in the world or what's...
I've been asleep for 20 years. I have no idea what's going on, but you know
what?
You
insulted me. I'm going to kill you. What? This doesn't make sense.
Right.
Babel is really good, guys.
Yeah.
He kind of morphs into Alton. She realizes he preys on fears. He's like, oh, Alton, Hanalai's nephew. And it's like, oh, so you two were related. And it shows like a flashback of
maybe
him.
He loved you. Maybe he loved me.
Maybe he loved his cousin.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
Maybe it's incest. Your House of the Dragon fanfic, Game of Thrones fanfic. Ready to go, Laura?
It's happening.
Full circle. It shows him like taking Alton's hand. So he chose him specifically because Hanalei loved him. And he took him to Dr. Shiro. So he literally handed over all the children who were Spearleys and like examined. This shows that he literally forced Hanalai's hand. Well, not literally, but figuratively forced Hanalai's hand when it came to handing over the information that Rin was talking about that led to the death of the Spearleys. So it was all his own machination, and he hates all Spearleys. Yeah. She decides then he needs to die. And it's like, you could have just never woken him up, Rin.
Why did we have to go this far, Rin?
But the Phoenix can't fight him. She can't reach the fire. She goes to try to fight him with the sword, but they're both really bad at it because they're both...
because she's like, oh crap, I'm out of practice and I also am missing a hand. I should have
practiced like they told me at the beginning of the third book. And it's like, but also he's been asleep for 20 years. This just reminds me of My Favorite Murder, where they always make the joke of like, there hasn't been anyone living here for 25 years. And one day they were finally like, guys, the joke is 25 years is not that long ago.
Yeah.
That's the joke. Like, I've been asleep for 20 years. So anyway, Zhang steps in and he starts fighting Riga and he's like, run. And Rin just watches him fight him for longer. And then he's like, run. And then the Phoenix is like, run. And then everyone is like, run. And so Rin finally runs and she flags down the dirigibles so that they can take care and fire up the pagoda. And she's like, good, because they can die with bullets, obviously. And she thinks that they're all dead. She jumps on one of the dirigibles to get her out of the line of fire, and they try to throw her off, and they end up like crashing, and she has to fall at just the right moment. And then she hears Alton mocking her, and she's like, am I dead? And it's like, not yet. Nope. And then she's like, I think I got rid of the Hesperian fleet and the trifecta. And it's like, Rin.
No.
And then she's like, I need to get off of these mountains. And that ends part 2. Can't wait to hear the like bullet rush in the part 3.
I'm nervous.
So this is her weakest novel yet for us out of the many we've read of hers. And she just announced
her 4th.
She just announced her 5th book is coming out May of 2023. So I'm sure we will be very excited to read that as well. But this is her weakest one so far. Laura, what are your thoughts?
A little too much rushing, a little too much convenience. I already said that I'm disappointed with the trifecta. And yeah, we'll see how it goes, but I understand why people really enjoy the first book so much. And the second book, I think, is a solid sequel. This is not as good as the first 2.
It's a little bit of a mess. A little bit of a mess. Yeah. She's amazing.
What do you think so far?
I think like this is the first one where the theme of like, hey, war makes us all similarly bad people. And like some people who are the worst are usually the ones who think that they're in the most power or they're the most dehumanizing of everyone. Those are really like solid themes in the first 2 books. But in this one, it feels like we've gotten off track from that.
Yeah.
And like, there's not like, not to say like we need to center the white people in these books, but like those were the big bad brought up in the second book. And we haven't really fought the big bad again. So it's just,
you can tell in this one though, that like some of the conversations that the characters are having and some of the things that are happening, that Kuang really wants to explore the topics of colonialism and racism as well, but it's just not handled very deftly, and it doesn't connect well with the way that things had been progressing, I guess.
And I always like that, like Rin is always centered in the story of like colonialism and everything. And this is the first book where it doesn't feel like Rin is centered. It feels like the trifecta is being centered in a way that was really lost on me. And I think she could have done it. Like, I almost wish she had just written the first portion of this book in like a giant prologue, a la
the
like,
trifecta,
a la the trifecta and a la like Wheel of Time, where we had like a 70-page one, where we at least got to sit with them for a while. So then when we go back into Rin's point of view, we don't need to spend as much time with them because we understand the context by the flashback. But here it felt like they still needed to have a bunch of conversations, and I didn't need those for Rin's perspective and Rin's storyline. And that is the storyline we're supposed to be focusing on. And it just became really messy after that. So like, we haven't gotten any Katai. We haven't gotten like, some of the best times where it shines are like her discussions with Venka, her discussions with Katai, and the Neja of it all, like coming in and talking to Katai. And Katai's like, are you
and
really
even
stupid?
like, is this bad? We're gonna say we miss Neja. Like, there needs to be a little more Neja. I feel like in this book, there's not enough of that yin to her yang.
These books are very centered on like, hey, who's in the wrong? But in this, we haven't gotten much of that because it's just like Rin has to go here now. Rin has to go here now. And
the problem is she's trying to wrap things up. And it's kind of a, oh crap, I want to be done. And I have too many things going on at the moment.
I almost wish she had waited for this book and she had written Babel first.
Yeah.
Or like written a couple
get
it
out of your
books.
System. Or make this one shorter, make it 4 books. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is the first one where I'm like, oh, this feels so rushed. Yeah. And I wish we had another book.
I totally understand, because I had seen a lot of reviews of this book on Instagram and people have not liked it. And I was like, oh, that's odd, you know, because like the first book I really enjoyed. I thought it was great. And I think that's kind of the consensus with everyone. They think the first book is wonderful. Second book, I thought was a solid sequel. And I know a lot of people criticize that one pretty heavily, that they didn't really like the Dragon Republic.
I really liked the Dragon Republic.
I really liked it as well. But this one is the one where I'm kind of like, I see why people don't like it. So,
it's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We'll see how the last part goes.
Yeah. So let's see. And we hope you guys join along with us, read part 3 with us, and rate, review, and subscribe to us, and vote in Indie Mission right now. It's all going on. Reach out if you guys have some thoughts on the Burning God, or your thoughts on.
If you finished it, I would be really curious for your thoughts. Send us your thoughts.
Yes. And just as a reminder, next week will be that plot episode and then a character episode, and then we'll have a wrap-up episode. So we will have some time to discuss all the things Kuang.
So much discussion.
And we're really excited about it. So follow us at Our Pod, that's OWWR Pod, on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at ourpod@gmail.com. And we can't wait to talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.